Okay, sorry for the pause because I ran out of memory. Had to delete some old videos in order to make new ones for you guys. Anyway, so we're done with the sphenoid bone foramen. Now we're coming on to the temporal bone over here, right? So the first foramen that you can see over here, this is called the internal acoustic meatus. So if I were to put this wire inside it, so this is a foramen that is present in the petrous part of the temporal bone. So this is the internal acoustic meatus over here, and it can be seen on the opposite side as well. And there it is, this one. This is the internal acoustic meatus, that part. So the nerves that go inside this are 2 in number. So there's the 7th cranial nerve, that is the facial nerve, and then there's the 8th cranial nerve, that is the vestibulocochlear nerve. So these 2 nerves, 7th and 8th, they go inside this foramen together, but only one of them come out of the skull, and that is the facial nerve. So this foramen, internal acoustic meatus, is connected to the stylomastoid foramen on the outside. For descriptive purposes, that's the one that you can see over here. So this foramen, stylomastoid foramen, is connected to the internal acoustic meatus. So the facial nerve and vestibulocochlear nerve, they go inside this foramen together, but vestibulocochlear nerve, because it goes to the ear, it then finishes off, and only the facial nerve exits the skull. So the contents would be 2 in number, and then there's a third content as well, because that has to go to the ear as well, and that is the labyrinthine artery. That is one of the arteries of the ear, and it's actually one of the longest arteries in the body. So labyrinthine artery. After that, we have 2 more foramen left. This big round foramen over here, this foramen, and let me see if I can put the light on there. So yeah, I think so. Yeah, sorry about the light. So this is the jugular foramen over here. Right below the internal acoustic meatus, that is the jugular foramen, right? So jugular foramen on this side, and then jugular foramen on this side over here, right? So this was the internal acoustic meatus, this part, and then the wire part is jugular foramen. Both are present in the temporal bone. The contents of the jugular foramen, the easiest one to remember, as the name suggests, jugular. So the first content is the internal jugular vein, or the bulb of the internal jugular vein. And then we have some cranial nerves as well. We were left with the 9th cranial nerve, that was the glossopharyngeal, the 10th, which is the vagus nerve, and the 11th, which is the accessory nerve. So these 3 nerves, along with the internal jugular vein, they exit this foramen, jugular foramen. And then there's also sigmoid sinus. That's one of the sinuses, the venous sinuses of the brain. So that also exits through this foramen. Right. So one big foramen that you can see over here, easiest one to remember, this is called the foramen magnum. Magnum, as the name suggests, it stands for magna, that is big. So this is the biggest foramen, foramen magnum, and easiest to remember. The contents include the spinal cord, the brainstem, and the spinal part of the accessory nerve. So some of the branches or roots of the spinal nerve, accessory nerve, 11th cranial nerve, they also exit this big foramen magnum. So important contents to remember: brainstem, spinal cord, and because the spinal cord traverses through this foramen in order to change into the brainstem, it would also carry its vessels. So the spinal arteries, anterior and posterior, and the spinal veins also accompany the spinal cord through this foramen in order to change into the brainstem. The last foramen that's left, and the last cranial nerve, if you're still with us and keeping a track of all the cranial nerves, we're left with the last one, which is the hypoglossal nerve, the 12th cranial nerve. If you can see on this skull, I don't know if it's visible, yeah. So this foramen over here, I don't know if I can pass a wire through this. Let's see if I can. Ooh, yeah. So this foramen over here, this is the hypoglossal canal, right? So you can see all the foramen over here. This is the internal acoustic meatus, this one over here. This big round foramen, not exactly round, but round foramen is the jugular foramen or the jugular fossa. Then this over here is the hypoglossal canal, and this is the foramen magnum. So hypoglossal canal is present on both sides. I don't know if you can see it in the light. It's over here, right? So we're done with all the foramen and their contents, and hopefully you guys will remember all of these. They're easy to identify, and especially on this skull because it's so clear. And that's usually asked in the OSPE, in the Viva, or some other sort of assessment. Hopefully, I made it easier for you guys. Cheers.